The first time I came here, I hated it. I'm not going to lie. I looked around. It was too hot. It was too sweaty.
I've learned a lot about Dubai. And one thing that I will say is that it is dog-eat-dog world out in Dubai.
Sheikh Mohammed runs this country like a business. He makes a decision to do something and it's done. I'm comparing this back to the UK.
The UK has changed greatly. It's not the same UK that you and I both grew up in.
Exactly.
And it's actually quite scary what's happening.
Yeah. So welcome everybody to another episode of the J2 Hub podcast. We don't often shoot on a Saturday afternoon. We normally leave it to the week, but today we're joined by a very, very special guest, if not the most special guest that's been on this podcast. Before I introduce him, just a little bit of background of what we're doing here. So we decided to put this little series together, me and this guest. I'll introduce him in a moment. And the series is all focused around family, marriage, moving to Dubai, having children, education, careers, and, just life in general. So we thought we'd split it up into little series because I'm always getting asked questions about, James, how did you guys move over to Dubai? What was it like in the UK? How are things over there in terms of education, living, costs, etc., etc.? So we thought it'd be a very, very interesting series to put together for people that are considering the move over to Dubai, or people that may be on the fence thinking, where should I live? What should I do? Where should I be going in the future? So now this particular guest has been bugging me for weeks and weeks and weeks to start this series. And obviously me being a man, I've just been overly busy with other things that I've told her are way more important. And also I was a little bit concerned, I didn't want to bring this person into the social media light because I was a little bit afraid because what happened recently to a very high profile social media a couple here in Dubai where his wife decided to leave him. So yeah, I was a little bit concerned about that as well. But anyway, nevertheless, today I'm joined by my very beautiful wife, Gurdeep Sahota, who's joining me here on the J2 Hub podcast. So thank you so much for finally gracing us with your presence.
Finally gracing you with my presence.
Yes.
And yes, I have been on at him. I have been on and on at him to say, look, I think this would be a good idea for us to do this podcast, to reach out to families who are actually looking to move over to Dubai. And finally, after how many months? I think it is 2, 3, 4, 5 months, has it been?
Maybe 6.
Probably 6 months. We finally got there in the end. So I want to thank you for finally getting me there, despite being your wife of 16 years and asking you and asking you and asking you. So thank you.
Okay. So look, just a quick little tip. When you're talking, have a look into that camera so we can see your beautiful eyes. Anyway, so let's get started. So guys, as you can obviously tell from the first 5 minutes, this is going to be quite rough, raw and ready. I'm probably going to get slagged off a lot by my wife, but that's okay because most of my friends like her over me anyway. So we're going to try and keep it as real as we can in this first hour episode, which we are limited to only an hour. So after that, we'll have a series of them coming up. So look, first question I'm going to ask you is for the listeners, because you're very private on social media. People don't really know who you are.
No.
So for my audience and for my listeners, give them a quick kind of minute and a half kind of recap in a nutshell of who you are, what you do.
Okay, so obviously married to James for 16 years. I am a teacher, currently a teacher, but I had to work my way to get where I am. I've been in the education industry for about 16 years, for basically as long as I've been married. In terms of who I am, I'm obviously a mother as well, mother to 2 boys. I'm a wife, but not only am I just a wife, I just feel coming from the cultural background that I'm from as well, I'm not just a wife, I'm not just a mum, I'm also a teacher. That's my profession. I'm also a daughter, I'm also a sister, I'm also a daughter-in-law. There's just, to summarize who I am in a minute and a half, it's very difficult, but essentially that's who I am. Just, teacher of 16 years, a mum. First, before I'm a teacher, I'm a mum. And yeah, I think as we go through this podcast, I think
people will get to know you.
Yeah.
And you'll be a little bit less nervous, I
wouldn't say I'm nervous.
It must be very difficult for you to be in the presence of a superstar.
You really love yourself.
I'm joking. I'm joking. Okay, anyway, listen. Let's crack on. So look, guys, you've probably from my channel and from my media, you've seen that we now live in Dubai. So we'll touch on Dubai a little bit. But I think before we go into Dubai, there's one thing I want to touch on, which is when we were growing up is a very taboo thing, like, coming from an Asian family, we're both from Indian families. So the way you're brought up in an Indian family is a little bit different to, say, a European family. Your values are different, your respect levels are different, and things can be a lot different. So look, I want you to just, what was it like for you growing up as a child?
I think growing up as a child, I mean, this is a difficult one because people who do know me, so my close family and my close friends, they know that although I had an amazing childhood and I am so thankful for my parents for what they've done for me, I did have a lot of responsibility burdened on me from quite a young age. But I suppose that was just the generation from back then where everyone just kind of helped each other out. I'm not I mean, I don't have any, there's no regrets. I'm not, I'm not angered by it in any way. It's taught me a lot, but I didn't come from a privileged background. Both my parents were immigrant parents. My mum came over when she was much younger from Singapore. She was educated in England. So she came over, I think, when she was like 12. And obviously she didn't have a choice in, well, I wouldn't say she didn't have a choice. She was told that she was going to get married at the age of 18 and, my mum was different. She wanted to educate herself, but I think my grandparents, they have seven children, 5 daughters, 2 sons. So mum didn't have a choice in like saying no to her dad. Anyway, mum gets married to dad. Dad's from India. So I had immigrant parents and I saw them work really, really hard to get to where they are today. And I remember my childhood being amazing. Like I was very lucky. My parents just never let us go without food. I didn't have designer things. We always had hand-me-downs. But growing up, I remember, like, if you're talking to me like what it is about growing up, if I just zone in on a memory, I remember my dad having to wake us up at 3:30 in the morning in order to drop me off to my aunt's house because my mum was away for 3 days. Because people who do know who I am, my mum still works for British Airways and she's cabin crew. She's been doing it for as long as I'm of my age, like 40 years. And I remember my dad having to wake us up at 3:30 in the morning and then saying, right, you're going to go to your aunt's. And, we would then have like 2-3 hours sleep, wake up in the morning, go to school, then having to pick up my brother, have another neighbor who picked us up and then stay with that neighbor and then go back home for the evening. So it was a really good childhood, but I also remember being burdened with a lot of responsibility as well.
I think, look, from what I wanted to pick out from there was that there's a lot of Asian children that grew up in the era that we did in the 80s and 90s, and respect was a massive thing.
Yeah.
And I remember going around to a couple of my friends' houses and they were English, they were white families, and I couldn't believe the way, one of my friends would just tell his mum to go fuck herself, and it's like, whoa, you come home.
That's probably one example. I think we're at risk of probably generalizing because I also had white friends, and I don't remember. I'm
not putting everybody in that same box, but what I'm saying is the respect level when you were brought up in the 80s and the 90s was a lot different if you came from an Asian family.
Oh God, yeah,
to a European family, because you couldn't get away with it.
I wasn't very vocal, in my childhood. I wasn't allowed to be vocal. I think we were in that generation of our mum just had to give us that look. We all know that look that our mum used to give us. I just did as my parents told me to do. I really liked art and drama, and I wouldn't say I was pressured to do science, but I felt that there was always that kind of, oh yeah, but where is arts and drama going to get you? You should really do something like do a proper subject. The thing is, luckily enough, I actually enjoyed science, so I kind of went into that route. But I don't think that I would have gone against my parents, like to say, oh yeah, well, tough, I'm doing this and tough, I'm doing that. There were certain things that I put my foot down onto, like any child would. Like, for example, living out at uni. I think my parents were quite reliant on me to help out in the household. But then I also felt, well, I've done it for so long that I need to do something for myself as well. Like I want to experience the world as well. But yeah, the respect levels were definitely different. 100%. I agree. I mean, if I compare it to like what our children are like, I mean, I say our children, our older son, it's completely different. I was not allowed to speak to my parents like in the way that he would.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I was kind of getting at. I mean, my oldest son this morning decided it'd be quite funny to get me in a headlock and throw me on the bed. You know, I know it's playful, but take yourself back to the age of 14.
Oh, no.
Would you ever have dreamt of going up to your mum, getting her in a headlock and throwing her in the bed?
I mean, I'll do that now because growing up, and that's it. I think, you know, when you talk about respect, I also think this as well. I also think growing up, my mum was never my best friend. Like, I can never say that my mum was my best friend. I know you had a completely different relationship with your mum because of your circumstances, but I never could say that my mum was my best friend. She was my mum. My mum was my mum. And I think after getting married and after having kids, then she became my best friend.
Yeah.
You know, so in terms of like, I remember some of my English friends or some friends that weren't Indian who had their mums as their best friends. And I always used to look at that and think, oh, you know, I want that.
Yeah, but you know what? I don't necessarily think that was a good thing because I had friends like that where their mother was their best friend. But then I'd see these guys smoking at the age of 13, 14 and mum was okay with it. And I'm sitting there thinking, if I rocked up into my house with a cigarette in front of my mum and lit it up, I know I'm getting a fucking jutti around my face.
You get
simple
slapped
as.
your face,
you know? So I think there's a very fine line with a parent being a friend.
Yeah.
But I think in today's day and age, it's probably a lot different.
Yeah. I agree.
But what I'm getting at is, I think anybody who grew up in the 80s and the 90s, especially, and I'm going to say it, especially in an Asian or an ethnic household, I'm talking Nigerian, African household, you knew straight away that if you fucked about or if you messed about at school, you were scared of the teacher, but you were more worried when you open that front door because you know your mum is waiting or your dad is waiting with a slipper and their aim, I don't care how good you think, they might be shit at sports, but with the aim with a slipper, that was going to hit you straight in your head.
100%. The thing is, I was always a goody two-shoes. I was always a goody two-shoes. And I think that came from wanting to please my parents. I mean, my mum and dad, completely different. Like I said, my mum she came over when she was really young. My dad came over from Delhi. He was born in Punjab, came over from Delhi, and you know, for someone who was from India, my dad was actually quite modern. But I always had this thing of being the eldest as well, being the eldest daughter, and you know, having to please my parents. And I think having to please your parents, you know, that also puts a lot of pressure, and that also puts a lot of that burden onto you as well, because having to please them, you know, okay, I won't do the drama and the arts, I'll please you by doing the sciences. Then I think, okay, where has that come from? Why am I pleasing them? It's come from the fact that, okay, where are they in society? And it was about making sure that other people respected them as well, because it was that thing, wasn't it? Like our parents, in order to maintain their status in society, was to say, okay, this is what my child is doing, this is what my child is doing.
Of course.
You know, so there was that pressure as well.
Yeah.
And there was always that pressure to be really good and well behaved. So when you go to weddings and then people saw you, they might see you as this, you know, really good girl who could possibly be a daughter-in-law, so you could go into a good family. There was so many different pressures. Not only was it the academic pressures, it was also the social pressures. How are you going to be seen, perceived by society as well? And
I think you raised some good points there, because it was a big and you've hit on that keyword, social. Back then, their social network, it wasn't online.
No,
it was at functions, it was at temple events, it was at weddings, it was at funerals,
going to Nagar Kirtans and getting dragged out to go there.
Exactly. So the thing is, what you got to realize, they had to upkeep a certain thing, and people would talk about other people's child. Because I remember it, you'd hear that one auntie would say, "Oh, have you seen Satwan's daughter? She's a lesbian." And, you know, it'll be a big, massive, oh my God, have you seen, she's been walking with this woman and she must be lesbian. So there was all this thing. Social was a big, big thing. Yeah. And I honestly feel that was their way of showcasing their child for a prospective husband.
100%. I completely agree with that. I would actually agree with that. Yeah. I would say, because I used to get dragged out. There would be times where I'd be like, look, I can't, I've got assignments to do. Nay, you have to go. We've been invited to this wedding. It's going to look very bad. And it's like, well, I don't want to go. But it was about, like you say, connecting with other people. There was no such thing as social media as we were growing up. You know,
and I remember a lot of, I'm referring, because we grew up in an era where racism still exists. You know, it was big.
But I mean, my mum willingly made a choice. So, I think that was also another kind of, I wouldn't say a gripe that I had. Gripe is the wrong word to use, but my mum made sure that we went to a school where there weren't many Indians, where we would possibly have got influence to do things that we shouldn't have done. So she pushed us to go to a school that was more white English. And growing up in the late 80s and the early 90s, I mean, you and I both know what it is. You're from East London, I'm originally from West. And, you were subjected to racism, but I think society at that time, I remember coming back home, telling my mum, there's a memory that's still in my head. And, we talk about racism, and because growing up I was always fairer skinned, and I'm not saying that I think in Indian culture there was that beauty standard, isn't it? If you're fair skinned, you're automatically beautiful, which we know now is just completely nonsense.
Fair and lovely.
Completely nonsense. It's complete nonsense. But being fairer skinned, I always got confused to either being mixed race or being English, and I was never that one to go, oh, okay, well, I'm safe, so I won't be subjected to racism. But I was, because I made it clear. I would speak Punjabi, I'd have a laugh and joke with my friends. And I remember being on the bus and, being subjected to racism. There was a young English boy, had a bit to drink, and throwing these abusive, racist comments for no reason. Me and my friends were just sitting on the bus. We were just having a good time. We weren't even speaking loud. We were just giggling and laughing amongst ourselves. And, the standard effing packy, go back to your own country. But I always think, I always battled back with, when we talk about racism, I always battled back with my brawn rather than brawn. I always used to go, oh, God, you're such a shame to your British education system. You must really hate it that these packies are getting better educated than you. You can't even string a sentence together. I always did it that way. And I remember going back to my mum, and even though I had to be a tough cookie in order to survive, I went back to my mum. My mum's like, yeah, it happens. You just kind of got to deal with it. And that was the kind of generation we came from. Like, you just kind of got to deal with it. And I did. And, I think it shaped me to the person that I am. Now, I'm not going to be on this podcast say all English people, all white English people are racist. No, they're not, because I was very lucky to have friends who were white English, who did defend us and who were there for us as well. So I was our school life was a bit different. Everyone's kind of just split up. But I was really lucky to have some of those friends that actually did stand up for us as well and have our back. But we came from that generation. Oh, you just got to deal with it, build a bridge and get over it is where we come from.
Yeah. And where I was going with this was racism was there. It was always apparent. And I remember my English friends, they couldn't understand our whole concept of the tightness in family, arranged marriage. Yeah. And arranged marriage was a big one, because what I'm going to do with this podcast, I'm going to take on a bit of a journey. So we've gone through school, we're going to move into marriage in a bit, but they couldn't understand arranged marriage. And they say, what? So you're introduced to someone, you know someone, and then you get married. But the whole concept behind it, let me go into it. And then I know you're itching. I can see you're itching to butt in. But give me 1 second. Give me 1 second, please. Yeah. So there'd be this whole thing of arranged marriage. You meet someone, you're going to date them, and you're going to get married straight away. And they couldn't understand this whole concept. But when you look back at it now, you used to think to yourself as well, oh man, what the fuck? Why do I have to marry this person? But what you don't realize is the parents had done the groundwork, in the sense they'd done all the background checks. They'd done this, they've gone there, they did this. Whereas today's day and age, it's like you dating for 4 or 5 years to get to know someone, whereas your parents would have got rid of all of that for you and done the research, done the groundwork. And before you know it, you've been linked up with someone who potentially has the same interest, or someone who fits in with you. And I remember years later, and there was a few memes on this online on social media, where this girl called Karen, she's talking and she goes, I had a love marriage. Seema had an arranged marriage. Seema lives in a really big house. I live in a council flat.
She's hilarious.
She goes, Seema's got 5 lovely kids and they go to private school. I'm divorced and I'm alone with the kids, and my kids are in a state school. Seema goes on 5 holidays a year. She goes, I haven't been on 5 holidays in my lifetime.
Drives a Mercedes.
And I'm thinking, do you know what? you look at it now and you think, damn, a lot of that is because somebody went out there and did the research for you and cut all the bollocks out, cut all the crap out, and lined you up with perfect candidates.
People didn't understand. People didn't understand that actual that arranged marriages were actually just like an international global dating system. That's all it was. Like you said, we didn't have social media, and then obviously parents are going to want the best for their children. So I remember being the age of like 13, 14, and like, you know, as you know, I grew up a lot in India because mum worked for British Airways, and dad made it a point. He was like, look, he goes to my mum, if your family's here in England, I want my kids to know where their roots are from and where, you know, where their family's from as well. And I think my dad did the best thing by doing that, because I've got such good relationship, touch wood, I've got good relationships with my family back in India. I know who my aunts are. I know who my dad's side are. And, you know, I have got amazing childhood memories like in India. Sometimes mum and dad used to drop us off for 6 weeks on end when we used to have holidays. And I grew up with my grandparents who instilled values in me, taught me about my culture, and also taught me the right way about my religion by not enforcing it on me. They did it in such a way where I would kind of be curious about it. But I remember being the age of 13 and going to weddings, and I always looked older than what I did, because I don't know why, I just did. And people would then ask, you know, is your daughter interested in marriage? And dad would be like, oh, she's only 13. So it was a way of your parents knowing what's best for you. And sometimes at that age, we don't see it. We're blinded. We're blinded by thinking that, oh, we know what's best for us. And sometimes we don't. Like, sometimes our parents do know what's right for us, you know, and they just want the best for you. So obviously, like, I think the way you explained it was perfect. They cut out all that crap, don't they? They cut out all that rubbish. They do the groundwork. They find out about the families. They make sure, okay, first of all, it's like, are they going to be secure? Is the boy good? You know, sometimes you can't always 100% guarantee it. But that's why when we talk back about the social thing, going to the gurdwara, going to the weddings, going to these functions, going to these parts that you like, these religious functions that you'd get invited to by people, it was a way to connect with other people as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's like familiarity. It's like, okay, if I know that family and that, and I know my friend wouldn't do it dirty on me, because back then, and this was a generational thing as well, and it's funny, I was having this conversation with my colleague. Back then, people were based on honesty and loyalty was a thing. And like, I find in today's society that's a lacking, you know, to find someone that's loyal and stands by your side, that it's really hard to do. People were men of their words, you know. So if, for example, I got to the age of like 20, 21, 22, and then the proposals started coming to my mum and dad. Oh, we know this great guy. Oh, this amazing family. They've got several properties. Your daughter, you know, good looking lad, educated, working in this, you know. Then dad would go, okay, he's my mate and I know him and he's not going to do a dirty on me. You know, people were men of their, like, women are men of their words.
It was their social network.
Yeah, it was.
You know, whereas today's social network is totally different. We won't go into that today, but it was their social network. So look, next question for you. Growing up, did you, when you got to the age of marriage, because we said we're going to touch on marriage.
Yeah.
Did you have an idea of what you were looking for, or did you just want to leave it all to your parents?
Well, to be honest with you, my mum and dad were always very open in this sense. They were like, okay, you know, if rishte is like how would you explain rishte? Like a
proposal.
And like a proposal, yeah. So proposal, when proposals did come, when marriage proposals did come, you know, my dad was actually really good. He'd be like, actually, she's studying. Actually, she's not interested. And maybe 2-3 years time, you know, and I wasn't getting bad marriage proposals. I was actually getting quite good ones. But I always knew deep down in my heart of hearts, I probably would want to find someone of my own. And that's why I used to tell my dad, no, I want to study more. No, I want to do this. No, I'm not interested. I think a part of me came from a generation where you did get married at 23, 24. I know in like today's society that's deemed as young, but for us that was like a good age to get married. There were people getting married at 21. I remember being in school and some girls being married at like 18 and coming in with like their Mangal Sutras, you know, coming in and still educating themselves, and they're still married to this day, you know. So we came from that generation, but I always knew deep down, I knew I wanted to find someone that I want to marry, that I want to grow with, right? Now, I mean, look, I've said to you before, I've had amazing marriage proposals from like India. People were doctors and they were wealthy, and I'm talking wealth beyond wealth. But when I spoke to them and when I saw how they were speaking to people, like we're British Indian, right? So I don't consider myself English because I'm not native to England. I've always said I'm British Indian and I'm proud to be British. I've had some of my white English friends tell me, God, you're more British than us. And it's true. I am very British, but I also hold my, like this is where the respect bit comes in and that my values close to me. Now, when I was introduced to this guy, and I was much younger, I think I was about 17, 18 at this time, or 19 possibly, very wealthy guy, but the way, and we were at this wedding, and at this wedding in India, there was the server, the people who serve food, like the waiters and the servers. The way he spoke to him with complete and utter disrespect. And I looked at this guy and I thought, you're disgusting. How can you speak to someone? That's a human being. And I suppose that comes from our British values, that it doesn't matter what your class is, how much money you've got, what job you do. I mean, you and I both know, like I became really good friends with our window cleaners, when the bin guys used to come over at Christmas and Easter, always giving them lagers, always giving them a bottle of vodka or a bottle of Jack Daniels to share. There wasn't that divide, that social divide. Whereas I was like, I can't marry someone like this. But then I thought to myself, okay, do you know what? Maybe that's just the one. Lo and behold, a couple of years later, going to Delhi, my aunt's introduced to another guy. And that kind of, yeah, come here. Wait, what is this? Yeah, take this away. What is this? The way that they would talk to you. And you're like, not talk to them. That's just wrong. You don't speak to humans like that. So straight away I knew, right, I'm definitely not getting married to someone from India. I can't do it. I think the mentality is completely different, completely on different wavelengths. And that's when I decided, no, I'm definitely marry a guy from India. But I knew I was going to find someone for myself.
It's that age-old saying that if you want to know what somebody's character's like, go and watch the way they speak to a waiter or a cleaner or a doorman.
Yeah.
Because if there's no respect for somebody who's doing a slightly lower job than everybody else, then what is the hope of them speaking with respect to you?
Yeah, 100%.
So, and that saying
100%.
really sums it up nicely.
Yeah.
So you said you was going to find your own person.
Yeah.
So did you know what you were looking for, or
didn't know? To be cool, do you know what? I think I looked at my parents' marriage, right? And I looked at that and I thought, that's what I want. And I tell you what I see. I saw them work hard and I see them make some sacrifices. I see them enjoy life in the right way. So like I'm talking little enjoyments like getting family together, having a good few old drinks, seeing, going to these family functions, going to weddings. And I always saw them do things together. And with my parents, there wasn't like a gender divided role, like, okay, because you're the woman, you're going to have to cook, and because I'm the man, I'm just going to go and earn money. There wasn't that, because they couldn't do that, because my parents got married young. My mum was like 18, 19 when she got married. My dad came from India, didn't speak very good English. He had to learn to speak good English. He educated himself here. He became a bus driver by going through all the exams and all the rest of it. Mum had quite a well-established job. Then I see them doing things together. So if dad had to cook, dad had to cook. I remember my dad ironing the clothes. I remember my dad making our food and dropping us off to school, picking us up. I remember dad doing the nurturing side as well. Normally that's like a motherly role to do, isn't it? Oh, you do the nurturing and you do the loving. Mum used to work shifts 6 on 3 off. I'm one of 4. I'm the oldest of one of 4. I'm the oldest. So, I saw that and I was like, okay, they've achieved things together. They've grown together. That's what I want. I want to grow with someone. That's what I was looking for. So I did have an idea. Funnily enough, I actually didn't want to marry someone who drank alcohol.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
But you drink yourself.
I do, but I'm not like, I wouldn't say I'm a big drinker.
Well, there's been occasions.
Well, that's occasions. It was not like a
frequent... There's been several occasions, but we'll save that for episode 10 or something. But anyway. No. But look, okay, so you realised that it was all about relationships, having fun, someone to grow with. Now,
enjoy life together.
I want to ask you a question, or I want to talk about a particular topic. Now, when our parents left India to come to the UK, the UK was the place to be. Okay? Lots of Indians, especially the Sikh community, made successes of themselves. There's no denying the Sikh community in the UK is the same community we're from. They're the second wealthiest community after the Jewish community. And the Jewish community is the wealthiest community in the UK.
Is that a fact?
It is a fact. And the Sikhs sit there right at the top. 87% of Sikhs own UK real estate.
Wow.
Their own homes or investment properties. But
I'm not great with statistics, and I didn't know.
Well, I had a look at this anyway. So it goes to show you that they came over in probably 40s, 30s even.
Yeah, well,
but they started coming up in influxes in the 50s. So you look where we are now, and the Sikhs are very well established. And Indians in general are established in the UK. Now, back then, it was the UK dream. Oh, मैं Canada jana. Oh, I'm going to go to the US. I'm going to England jana.
Well, the way I explain it is that, like, so for example, to get out of India was like your ticket way out of poverty. And that's something that my dad kind of explained to me. Education is your ticket way out of poverty. You have to educate yourself to get out of poverty. I mean, there's many ways to get out of poverty. You and I both know there are many different ways. But education was the honest
look,
and the right way.
we'll come on to education in a minute. But what I want to talk about is, so for them, the UK was the place to be back then.
Yeah.
Do you still think the UK is the place to be right now?
I knew you were going to ask me.
I'm going to ask you that question because right now, for me, I watch it very, very closely. We've just had the Labour election. Sorry, we've had the political election where Labour's just won. So I'm asking you because you've seen it through the years.
Yeah.
And you've seen some horrific crimes on our own street when we were back home. So the question to you is, do you think the UK is still a place to be where somebody can come from a foreign land and still make a success? So guys, if you're thinking of investing in Dubai, we offer two services. Number one, you can book a consultation call with us. Now, what this consultation call involves, it's a full overview of Dubai where we show you what's going on where and where the new up-and-coming spots are to invest. It's a totally free call, so I highly advise if Dubai is pricking your attention, get that call booked in so you can find out where to invest next. Think very hardly about how you answer this because I'm going to then move on to another question.
I think it's very, very hard. If someone
No. It's a yes/no question. No. You can elaborate after, but do you think the UK is still a place where somebody can come from a foreign land and make a success of themselves?
It depends on the person.
Yes or no?
You
can move into this after. Yes or no?
But there's several factors that can affect the yes or no. So depends on what the financial background and what the financial circumstances are.
Look, this is a raw and ready podcast. It's not sponsored by anybody. You can say what you want.
But it depends on many things, right? It depends on many factors. What is their
financial
background?
I'll make it easier for you. I'll make it easier for you. Let's compare it from your parents' time to now. It was definitely a yes back then because so many came by the boatload. And they used to come on the boat 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Now, it was a yes then. Is it a yes now?
Probably not.
Exactly. And why do you think that is?
But the thing is, you're getting me to say no. But there's several factors that can affect that. Someone who's highly educated in India, they come over to the UK, they get a good job in banking industry, say. They will be able to make things, they will be able to
but it wouldn't
survive.
happen. Yeah, but it wouldn't
and
happen
someone
now.
Who's got a good financial background, and they come over to UK, they will be able to
My
survive.
counter to that is, I've got tenants that rent our properties that earn £200,000 combined together.
Okay.
And they can't get on the property ladder.
Okay. Right.
So someone coming over from India, yes, I agree with you. If they got a good job, they could have a relatively good standard of living. But I reference checked a doctor who's come over to Southend. He's a doctor, a senior doctor in the hospital, and his take home was only £3,000 a month.
You joking me?
No, I'm not joking you at all.
Senior doctor.
He's a senior doctor who's been employed from India in the NHS. £3,000 a month was his take home. And he's forced to live in a shared house in a room, which cost him £1,000 a month, so he can have some money to save.
That is insane. So my question is, why come over to the UK then?
Because the UK for him is still a better prospect than India.
Okay. Well, then there you go. You have it. Probably not then.
No. I know you don't. Some of my social posts you don't like, and you go, "Oh, it was a great country." I'm not denying it. The UK.
I'll tell you what it is. It comes back to that point of loyalty, right? So for me, I was born in the UK. I was bred in the UK. I was educated in the UK.
Yeah.
I had my kids in the UK. So for me, I would always be loyal to the UK.
But you didn't do that for free.
No, I know.
So every month when you used to moan about your deductions off your paycheck, that was going. It's almost as if you're paying rent for your land. So you can't say, "Oh, the NHS was great to me." Yes, they were great. I'm not denying they were not great, but you were paying for it.
Yeah, I was. You're right. I've been working since the age of like 15.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this is what I say to people. They say to me, "Oh, well, James, if you don't like the UK, don't come back. Fuck off out of our country." And I think to myself, collectively, I've probably paid way more tax than your whole generation. So don't tell me that fuck off back to your own land. I was born in the UK. The UK is a place I have made a success in the UK.
I would always call UK my country, though.
And what I say to people is, I'm not saying that I hate the place, that I despise the place, but it's changed.
It has. It has changed. The UK has changed greatly. It's not the same UK that you and I both grew up in.
Exactly. This is the point that I'm getting at. And now,
and it's actually quite scary what's happening.
Yeah. And listen, before we even get onto the crime, so we've had a new Labour election, election where Labour's come in.
Right.
I was hoping my mate Rishi might get a seat because I felt a little bit sorry for him, but he's a bell end as well. And I'm sorry to say it, these guys come into power for 4 or 5 years. They make all these amazing promises. Oh, we're going to do this. We're going to bring this in. We're going to do this. These guys don't even know how to put a pair of trousers on. I'm sorry, yeah?
Isn't that for every MP?
No.
Isn't that every prime minister?
No. Yeah, in the UK, yes, a lot of them. A lot of them. So they come in, they make these false promises. No, but listen, Rishi actually said a few things that looked quite appealing.
Yeah.
And you thought to yourself, you know what, maybe he might do it.
Well, it really makes me laugh. Everyone loved Rishi when he was giving out money during COVID.
Oh,
then he was amazing.
Yeah, of course he was.
Right?
Of course he was.
It just makes me laugh. People pick and choose.
But, you look at it now and Labour's in and they're making it very difficult. People like myself, people like us, we still have a UK portfolio and we're going to be affected in a big way, And all of these naive people have voted for them based on the promises that they've made. And those promises, I can guarantee you, in 4 years' time, 10 years' time, Labour will lose their seats, the Conservatives will come back in, and it'll all be messed up again.
It's like a roller coaster,
isn't it?
It's like a roller coaster.
It is. And they're not, nobody's singing from the same hymn sheet. So what I'm saying is, in the 40s, 50s, 60s, England was the place to be.
There was opportunity.
Yeah.
There was hope.
And now, I honestly feel the last 10 years, 5 years even, 6 years, has been the Middle East. And the Middle East will be the next powerhouse. And I've said this time and time again on the podcast. Sheikh Mohammed runs this country like a business. Yeah? And he cares. Yeah?
People love him.
Exactly.
People love him.
There is one person and his crew making decisions. When the Sheikh says, I'm going to expand this highway by 3 lanes, within a month,
it's done.
You think, there's 300 people out there working.
Yeah.
And you come back in a year's time, you look at it and you think, oh my God. Recently, they announced this whole metro extension. Now, my job, my line of work, I'm always on the road. I'm driving around. And I'm there like 1 month, I think, they started putting those columns off and they've done like 800 meters of track. And you think, I'm comparing this back to the UK.
Where there's potholes everywhere and it takes years for them to fix
it. It's not going to happen.
But you pay road tax.
And here, he makes a decision to do something and it's done. And I think it's 2 very, very important factors. Number one, it's him and his family making decisions. There ain't nobody coming up for an election.
Yeah.
They're not even giving anybody a chance because nobody needs to come in because they ain't doing nothing wrong. Yeah. And then secondly, they actually, whatever he says is going to happen, happens. And when he announces a new initiative, I've never seen an initiative announced by the Sheikh which negatively impacts people.
100%, yeah.
Everything he says has been positively impacting. I mean, I was reading about this new blue visa the other day, and it's a blue visa for 10 years I haven't looked into too much, but it's a blue visa for 10 years for people that have lowered carbon footprint, that have been working on the environment, their careers in the environment. So he's like, these people need to be rewarded for what
that's different from the golden
visa,
okay.
you know? So his initiatives are really, really strong. And again, something he said the other day, and it was bold all over social media. He said, you invest in Dubai and you will not go wrong. And I thought, this is the leader of the country saying this, you know? And people are so quick to jump and say, oh yeah, but Dubai, women can't have their hair out. You can't hold hands. I had a stupid comment today. Guy goes, there ain't no cinemas. And I'm thinking to myself,
yeah, you're right. There's no cinemas in Dubai.
You know, and these people that say these comments, I don't get angry at the comments, because when I look at their profile, you can quite easily judge someone by the photos they upload, and you think to yourself, you know what, I actually feel quite sorry for you, because you're not in a position to change your circumstances. But I always say to people, I take hundreds of calls every month from people that are inquiring about moving out to Dubai. And I always say to people, like, look, especially, and most of my clients are Asians because they connect. They always say to me, James, our parents left India for a better life for us. They say, I now need to do something to create a better life for my children.
Kids,
you know, and when you look at it like that, you can't keep following what used to work.
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm going to give you a very good example.
It's like trying to sell a dead horse.
Saturday night, we used to go to Blockbuster Video, yeah? Blockbuster Video, you would hire a video, you'd get some popcorn. What the hell happened to Blockbuster Video? Netflix come along and Blockbuster did not want to change their way. They wanted to stick to it.
Yeah.
Virgin Megastores in the UK. Okay, here they're working really well.
They're working.
Virgin Megastores, people used to go and buy tapes, music, all of that.
Yeah.
Then Sony came along with MP3s and everybody's like, oh, who's going to download a digital file? So people don't change with times. And I'm telling you, mark my word, Dubai is going to get to a point where people will not be able to move in.
Do you know what? I agree with that.
It's going to get to a point where it's going to get expensive.
Yeah.
It's going to get to a point where...
It's already happening to us,
isn't
it? It's already happening to us when we wanted to purchase a property, which was not even long ago, was it? It was like 3 months ago? 4 months ago, we wanted to buy one of our own, and it's already gone up by what?
Half a million dirhams?
No, it wasn't 500,000 dirhams. What are you talking about? It wasn't 500,000. It was like 200,000, I think it was.
Whatever it was, in hindsight, everything increases here so quickly. So when I speak to people, they go, James, I've got about £65,000. I want to invest in Dubai. I go, brother, you know, I'm sorry to say that it's not going to get you anything, man. You need to rethink this. So what I say to people is, go away, get a piece of paper, an A4 piece of paper, put the pros and the cons down, especially if you're a family person. And you know, I keep referring back to Indian people, but I've got English friends here in Dubai that made those decisions for their kids as well.
Yeah.
I've got friends here that have been here 15, 16 years that made those decisions.
When the offer came, or when we were presented with an opportunity to move to Dubai, you were quite resistant to it.
I'm not.
Do your viewers know that?
Yeah, absolutely. Because the first time I was out in Dubai, if you look at my social media profile, I kind of went round and I was like, man, I'm not really feeling this place.
You weren't sold.
No, I wasn't sold.
We came here on holiday first.
And I'd never been here first. Okay, so you got to remember that. I'd never been to the country before.
I'd have several times.
I knew what the country was about in terms of what they were doing in the future. But you've got to remember one thing. Back in the UK, I had a very nice system going in terms of I knew what I was doing in the property game.
Right.
I knew that I'd finish a project. I could go on to another project. I could go on to another project.
But at what cost was that happening?
I got very comfortable. I got very, very comfortable.
At what cost? You doing all of this at what did it cost you?
Listen, it cost me a lot of things, but look, because this is only an hour-long episode, we need to save that for another time.
Right.
But I got very, very comfortable. But as you say, the first time I came here, I hated it. I'm not going to lie. I looked around. It was too hot. It was too sweaty. We probably came at the wrong time of the year, to be fair. It was a bit warm.
Yeah.
But when I started speaking to other people that had made the move and started understanding the reasons of why the move had happened,
right,
and when I started looking into more the initiatives that the country offers and the things that are available,
right,
it was appealable. But even then, still, I don't think I would have come out here if you hadn't got a job here.
That's really nice for you to say, because you've never, ever, ever outrightly ever said that to me, or you've never made me feel that way. Honestly, this is the first time. No, seriously. No, this is serious talk. This is the first time you're actually admitting it.
Okay.
Right? But
so listen, before I lose my chain of thought here,
right?
Because I'm getting old now and I have to write stuff down and I will forget. Okay. So, like you say, I wasn't sold. I was not sold
Neither
at all.
Was I.
But when you came back, and I remember we're sitting at the airport, and you said to me, "Do you think you could live here?" And I went quiet for a bit, and then in my head, I started thinking, well, Mum's not around anymore, because if she was still around, I don't think I would have moved out.
I don't think I would have wanted
And to be fair, that was probably the only reason I was sticking around London, because my mother was there. Not that she would have stopped me from going.
No.
So that was a number one factor. And then you said to me, you go, well, I might have a job out here. And then I thought to myself, okay, now this really changes things. I might have a job out here. And then when obviously anybody who knows, we're going to talk more about teaching and the perks of teaching and how it's a great profession out here. But as a nutshell,
it does come with its
teaching comes with its perks as well. So let's say one of the perks is your kids can get educated for free. And you do get
most schools.
Yeah,
for most schools.
And you get housed, but we'll talk about that more. And you get housing allowance. So for us, it was great. It was like, okay, this is really kind of, we're not having to go in at step 0. We're going in at step 3 or 4. So when you said that to me, I think I just remember saying, yeah, all right then.
Do you know what it was? It was when
we were waiting to board the plane.
Yeah, no, but I had got the job offer before.
Yeah.
Right. I'd provisionally accepted, and it was it was our brother-in-law, your sister's husband, and he put things into perspective. And when I said, "Oh, but I'm not sure," when I looked at my salary, I was like, "Yeah, but it's not that much more. It's more. It's tax-free. It's a bit more, but it's not that much more." And he put things into perspective, and he said, "Look," he goes, "Look, I'm not saying this to insult you." He goes, "But you're not getting any younger." Back then, I was 38.
He called you an old dog?
No, he did not call me dog. He goes,
indirectly.
But he had a point. He had a really valid point as well. And I think that's when I thought, actually, he's right.
Yeah.
He was like, look, you're not getting any younger. He goes, you're 38. He goes, you're heading towards your 40s. He goes, I don't want to say baggage. He goes, but you've got 2 kids. That's also coming at a cost. And you're married. That's also coming at a cost, because then the allowances have to get more. He goes, if you don't make this move now, then you're not going to be able to make this move, because by then we had our eldest who was just finishing up year 7, and there was no way, if he was in like year 9 or year 10, that I would come out to. No, I would not disrupt his education anymore. And I know people have got their opinions. Oh, it doesn't matter if you move your kids. For me as a teacher, the stability that a child has and the relationships and the positive relationships that they form with their teachers, it has a direct impact on their learning and their progress. That's me saying, because I see that. And it was him. And I said, actually, you've got a point. Yeah, if I don't do this now. And when that opportunity came, and I'm really glad that I did that, because I'm hearing now from many people that teaching now in Dubai is very saturated.
Yeah.
And people, I've been in this industry for 16 years, and people who are heads of department managing 14 people are getting less than what I am. And I'm a teacher.
You know what? Honestly, looking at teaching from a business perspective, with my business head, me and my business partner were talking about this the other day, and he said to me, he goes, James, teaching here in Dubai has always been like, because the perks are there, a lot of people come here.
Yeah.
And they can just be a mediocre teacher and get away with it. But he said to me, he goes, now it's starting to attract some of the best talent. Yeah. And what that's doing is, like the country, the teaching level's getting higher and higher. And I feel there's going to be a big shake-up coming in the teaching industry, where if you're not at a certain level, I think you're going to be out. And I think, because Dubai has said it, the Sheikh said it, he doesn't want people leaving the country to go to university, which means if he wants to do that, he's got to make sure everything below university or before university is bang on.
It's solid, yeah.
So I feel, as easy as it may have been 10 years to get into the profession, I think now it's going to be one of those class 1 professions where it's going to be difficult for you to get into. But again, look, we'll look at teaching 100%. More in another episode. 100%. So we made the decision that we would come out here. And, you know, ironically enough, about a month before that, we looked at a new home. You remember that one we looked at over in Waltham Abbey with the gates on the corner, and we put an offer in for it and it got rejected.
Yeah.
You know, and I think to myself now,
but several got rejected. It wasn't
I
just
think
that
all
one.
of them were getting rejected,
because
right?
we didn't just look in Waltham Abbey, we were looking at other areas as well, like around the Essex area as well.
Everything was getting rejected anyway. So, but you look back now and you think, you know what? If that offer got accepted and we took on a mortgage for 25 years, we would have been, exactly. We would have. And then rates would have changed.
Yeah.
So kind of everything just fell into place. And I remember we got back home and it was probably, what was it, April time?
It was towards the end of April, yeah.
Towards the end of April, so May's starting. Now, we've made a decision and we had to leave by August the 21st.
No, that's when I started.
So we left 16th. On August the 16th.
I think it was just after your cousin's wedding. What was it, 13th?
13th or 14th of August. So between April and then, boy, did we have to get a lot of stuff done. But
oh my God.
We'll talk a little bit more about that, because I think for the listeners, it will be great to understand the whole moving costs, all of that, selecting schools, etc., etc.
Well, I didn't really have a choice in selecting schools, did I? The kids just had to go wherever I was.
But the point of the matter is that even initially for us, it was like, fuck, this is really this is a big, big move. And I remember we were so nervous telling family members, and when we told them, they were like, look, we've got something really important to tell you. And it was either,
are you pregnant?
Or is one of you dying? You know, it was those two things. And a lot of people were very, very happy for us,
really
but we were quite sad because there were some people we were leaving behind where we built some really, really good relationships.
Really good relationships. And I miss them so much. And I think that's the hardest part when you leave your loved ones. I mean, I'm flying out tomorrow, so you've chosen the perfect time to do this podcast, just the day before I'm flying out.
Well,
with the two boys.
Well, I was kind of threatened.
Up in Bali.
And anyway, let's not talk about that. So it was a very, very difficult decision for us to make as well. Because the thing is, when you're comfortable, it's very difficult to just keep going.
Yeah.
And for someone like myself, I got quite comfortable in what I was doing, but I also wasn't really growing.
It's because you're not feeling challenged enough. You feel you are not challenging yourself.
Yeah.
Now, there are some people who are quite happy with complacency, right? I was like that. I was like, no, I've got my job. I've got my job in my adequate school. It's paying me. And I became like that. But I wasn't being challenged. And moving to Dubai, God has it challenged me, not just as a teacher, but as a person. I've learned a lot about Dubai. And one thing that I will say is that it is dog eat dog world out in Dubai. Right.
Yeah.
You have really got to be of a certain character. You have to be really resilient. You have to be very strong. Because it is dog eat dog world. It really is.
So look, let's take it back because we've got some time here. And so we make the decision, we go back to the UK and, then things really hit home and we're like, okay, we now have a lot of packing to do. Number one, there was a lot of legal bits to do.
Documentation that kills you.
And then there was the shipping as well. Obviously, we weren't going to move out here without some of our creature comforts, little things that you get used to. And we had to arrange for shipping containers.
But the thing is, I know people that have done it without doing that. But I think like you say, I was like, look, I love cooking and there are certain utensils there is no way that I'm leaving behind.
Yeah.
And there's certain new, I thought, okay, we're starting a new life. Let's get some new bits. But I also bought some stuff that, like you say, like your creature comforts. And you were like, well, I'm not going to go out there and spend X amount on a bloody TV and, I'm taking my one with me. And then obviously your screens and your equipment and then the kids stuff as well. So yeah, we ended up doing half a container's worth, which do you know what? I think we did the right thing.
Yeah, but we did half a container's worth and we took over nearly 3/4 of a ton on the plane as well. Do you remember that?
3/4 of a ton.
Yeah. So we had 600. We had 600. We had 680 something kilos that we took with us on the plane.
Did we?
Yes.
680 kilos.
Yeah,
you're feeling all right.
Do you not remember when we wouldn't let your mum come anywhere near the measuring because she would have lost her shit?
Let's just pray she doesn't listen to this.
Yeah, we had about 17 bags. And
are you sure?
Yeah.
No, we didn't.
We did have a lot of stuff when. Anyway, so look, the decision got made, and then there was a lot of stuff for us to do. I mean, we had to renovate one of our homes. We had to set the other one up. We had to sell the car.
You had to when you single-handedly ripped out the bathroom.
Yeah.
And you did most of it as well, didn't you?
Yeah. So I kind of renovated.
Apart from the tiling.
Tiling I'm not very good at, but I redid all the plumbing in the bathroom, put this beautiful bathroom in, kitchen again, did all the prep work, had my kitchen fitter come and fit the kitchen in. But it wasn't only that. When you've been living in a place for years, you have a lot of shit.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of stuff that we had to sort out.
Yeah.
And kind of, I feel quite happy now because it's like a
uploading.
lot.
Yeah. There's feng shui, isn't it?
Yeah. So if I drop dead tomorrow, there isn't many shits I've got to worry about.
Yeah.
Apart from the 2 shits at home.
Oh, don't call them 2 shits. They're our 2 shits, all right?
But yeah, so look, and then I remember when we got here, it was still very shaky.
Yeah.
We're still very, very shaky. The first few months, you're in a new land.
That's another podcast to explain the fact that I mean, just to give you an insight, I started in August, the school that I worked in, and my resignation was given in December, and with a view to move back to the UK. And to be fair, I don't know if I've thanked you enough or if I've said this enough to you. I just really appreciate you supporting me and saying, okay, we'll do whatever makes you happy. And you were looking into it. And if it weren't for my friend, who I also think we should get on a podcast, he's now one of the directors at Canadian University, leading on the games division. If it weren't for him to say, you know what, you ain't going because the UK is shit back at home, you have got to stay. And he kept sending me screenshots of job roles on TES and saying, try this one. If it weren't for him, I don't think I would have tried. I think I would have just done, right, it's easier for me to go back, because I could have walked in 2 of my roles back there easily, Yeah.
So, because my initial plan when I came out here was I was finishing off one big project anyway, and the initial plan was just to carry on going, carry on doing projects, flying back here and there. And then
it's not feasible.
Someone said to me, James, you're either all in or you're semi in. And then I decided, I'm all in. And that's when I thought to myself, right, I need to do something out here, which is going to really, 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 really challenge me.
Do you think you've done the right thing by taking your foot out of the UK, where you were looking at properties continually there, and you've then...
Because you know what it was like.
Real estate business here. You think that was the right thing to do, right? And I said that to you. I said, the problem with you is that you put your fingers in too many pies. That's a problem. You've got to zone in on one, like focus on one. And and I'm really glad that it's worked out for you. And, touch wood, it goes, it continues.
Yeah, I mean, look, it was taking yourself out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
And it was very uncomfortable, because I still remember driving down the Sheikh Zayed Road for 40 minutes every single day and thinking, what the fuck am I doing?
Yeah, because you're one of those people that you have to be your own boss. Whereas I'm one of those people quite happy to go into a role, and do my job.
Yeah.
And I'm not very good at self-managing myself.
And, I worked for a company for a year because I wanted to learn the system. I wanted to learn how
you done the right thing. It was very clever what you did.
Yeah,
very,
of course
very
it was. There was always a game plan with it. Yeah. But having worked for yourself for all those years, sometimes it can be difficult when you've got some little scrote telling you what to do. Especially when that scrote's quite annoying. But we'll talk more about that anyway. So look, guys, the main purpose of this little mini series that we're doing is to take you on a bit of our journey and advise on what we've done. It's the easiest way to get the information across, because we always get messages saying...
I think the reason why we're doing it is if you are thinking of moving to Dubai, I wish I had someone to advise me and say, look, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? I mean, we were lucky. We had your sister, right?
Yeah.
To be fair, we did have that. But there were so many other things that we didn't even think about, So I think, if you are thinking of moving to Dubai, just with some honest advice, is what the aim is, really.
Yeah. So look, I normally say I'll share the guest's contact details, social media profile on the bottom of the show notes, but I don't think I will for this particular one, because she doesn't really want to be bugged on social media. Quite a private person, doesn't do any socials, doesn't believe in it. We'll talk about that again on another topic. But thank you so much to everybody for tuning in. I really do appreciate it, because it takes a lot of effort to put this show together. And when we get really nice, kind comments where people say, you know what, that was a really good podcast, I really took something away from that. So... yeah, it's on YouTube. You can watch it on YouTube. Any suggestions, any comments? I'm not going to say go and smash that like button and subscribe button, because I don't, not like that. But if you need any help, if you've got any messages, any questions, you can get me on my Instagram profile, where you can quite easily connect with me. So thank you for being my most important guest and coming on the show.
Thank you for taking about 6 months.
Yeah,
to get me on.
Yeah, and enjoy your month in the UK, because I'm sure as hell going to be enjoying my month in Bali.
Enjoy your month, but for me, I'm going to be with my family and my friends, and I need to decompress, and being away from your loved ones and being authentically yourself as well. Being authentically me and going into the little cracks and the holes of the streets of Hayes with my brother with a couple of cans. That's what I'm looking forward to.
A couple of cans of what?
A couple of cans of, pre-mixer gin and tonic.
Oh my God, here we go. Well, thank you so much again for tuning in. And again, thank you so much to the Dubai Podcast Studio for this fantastic setup. You guys always look after us and we really appreciate it. Thank you.